Hey, you all know Newton, right? Sir Isaac Newton, one of the world's greatest scientists. His discoveries in physics and mathematics revolutionized science and gave him an important and lofty position in the history of science. The story of how he was hit by an apple and then studied and proposed the law of gravity is well known. But wait, this is only one small part of his story. Do you instead know his anecdotes? Have you ever wondered what was his life like? Let us dive into his legendary life. This video is 10 minutes 34 seconds long. Please enjoy. The story began on January 4, 1643. Our protagonist, Newton, was born in Woolsthorpe Manor in Lincolnshire, England. Newton was born very small due to premature birth. His mother, Hannah Ayscough, is said to have said that, when Newton was born, he was so small that he could fit in a quart mug. You see, celebrities usually have something special that makes them different from ordinary people. When Newton was 3 years old, his mother remarried and moved in with her new husband, Reverend Barnabas Smith. Young Newton disliked his stepfather and was hostile to his mother because of her marriage. In 1648, Newton was sent to school. He was not a child prodigy when he was young. His grades were average, but he liked reading and was inspired by it. He made some strange gadgets by himself, such as tiny windmills, wooden clocks, folding lanterns, and so on. It is said that he built a model of a mill by putting a mouse to a treadmill with wheels and placing a grain of corn in front of the wheel. The mouse wanted to eat the corn, so it kept running, and the wheel kept turning. This shows that Newton was a studious and practical person. In 1654, Newton went to study at King's School, which was more than 10 kilometers away from his home, and lived there as a boarder. Newton's mother originally wanted him to become a farmer, but Newton himself was not willing to do that. As he grew older, Newton became more interested in reading and doing scientific experiments. When he was studying at King's School, he lived in the pharmacist Clark's drugstore, where he was edified by chemical experiments. Therefore, Newton's academic performance was outstanding in middle school. He even used a wooden box and a glass bottle to make a water clock to control time. Every day at dawn, the water clock would drip water on his face to wake him up. Later, due to financial difficulties, Newton's mother asked him to stop studying and work on the farm to support his family. But Newton buried himself in books whenever he had the chance, and often forgot to work. Once, Newton's uncle found Newton lying on the grass, concentrating on solving a math problem. His eagerness to learn impressed his uncle, so he allowed him to go back to school. Newton returned to school and eagerly absorbed the nutrition from books. He once ran around in a storm testing the wind and got soaked to the skin. It can be said that his love for science has reached the level of obsession. In October 1659, Newton returned to Woolsthorpe Manor again, as his mother insisted that he should be a farmer. Although Newton obeyed his mother's wishes, according to his peers' later accounts, farming made Newton quite unhappy. Fortunately, Henry Stokes, the headmaster of King's Royal School, persuaded Newton's mother. He was sent back to school to complete his studies. He completed his high school studies at the age of 18 and received a perfect graduation report. His signature can still be seen on the windowsill of the school library. On June 3, 1661, 18-year-old Newton was admitted to Trinity College, Cambridge University. At that time, the Academy's teaching was based on the theories of Aristotle. Professor Isaac Barrow, the first British scholar to hold the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics, discovered that Newton was a talented person and recommended him as a graduate student. In 1665, Newton discovered the generalized binomial theorem, including the binomial expansion in which each term has a coefficient That is a Pascal triangle number. He then began to develop a new mathematical theory, which was later developed with Leibniz into calculus. However, he did not give its complete description until 1704. Furthermore, Leibniz's notation and differential calculus were adopted throughout continental Europe and, after about 1820, in England as well. One day in 1666, a familiar story came. Newton was sitting under an apple tree reading a book, when an apple suddenly hit him on his head. He became very curious, and after a series of research, he discovered law of gravity. In the same year, he used a prism to study the dispersion phenomenon, and concluded that white light is a mixture of different colors. That is, different wavelengths of light. And different wavelengths of light have different refractive indices. Among visible light, red light has the longest wavelength and the smallest refractive index. Violet light has the shortest wavelength and the largest refractive index. In March 1667, Newton set up a laboratory behind his room. He built a reflecting telescope with a magnification of 40 times, which could clearly see the 4 satellites of Jupiter, and also proposed a solution to nonlinear equations in mathematics. Once when he was boiling eggs, he was so concentrated in his studies that he boiled his pocket watch instead of the eggs. On October 29, 1669, recommended by Barrow, the 26-year-old Newton became the second holder of the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics. On July 5, 1687, Newton published one of his masterpieces, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica. This book explains Newton's 3 laws of physics. The first law: any object, when not subjected to any external force, or when the forces it is subjected to are balanced, will always maintain uniform linear motion or its state of rest, until an external force acts on it and forces it to change this state. Second law: it is basically a formula. Force equals mass times acceleration. Third law: for every force, there is an equal and opposite force. In 1688, Newton was elected as a Member of Parliament by Cambridge University. In 1696, Newton's classmate Charles Montague served as Chancellor of the Exchequer. At that time, the British monetary system was very chaotic. So Montague invited Newton to serve as Deputy Director of the Royal Mint of Britain to solve the monetary difficulties. After estimating that 20% of currency was counterfeit, Newton oversaw the largest recoinage operation in Britain, with great results. In 1703, Newton became president of the Royal Society. In 1704, Newton published Optics, in which he believed that light is composed of very tiny particles. However, a scientist named Robert Hooke criticized some of Newton's ideas. Newton was very dissatisfied with this, so he satirized Hooke. "I stand upon the shoulders of a giant," comparing the giant to Hooke. However, Hooke was short and had a severe hunchback. So, obviously Newton was satirizing Hooke. What's more, before the publication of Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, Newton deleted most of the references to Hooke in the book. After Hooke's death, Newton first disbanded the Hooke Laboratory and Hooke Library in the Royal Society, and then dispersed or destroyed all of Hooke's research results, research materials, and experimental instruments. In the end, even the only portrait of Hooke was destroyed. In 1711, the Royal Society announced that Newton was the discoverer of calculus and Leibniz was denounced as a liar. But later, it was discovered that the conclusion of the survey, commenting on Leibniz, was written by Newton himself. So the survey was questioned. This led to the fierce Newton-Leibniz calculus debate, which ruined the lives of Newton and Leibniz. In 1705, Queen knighted Newton. In March 1727, Newton suffered from kidney stones and passed away shortly afterwards. These are his last words: "I don't know what I may seem to the world, but as to myself I seem to have been only like a boat playing on the seashore, and diverting myself now and then in finding a smoother pebble, or a prettier shell than the ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me." Newton was buried in Westminster Abbey, and above his tomb stands a statue of himself, with a stone figure leaning on a pile of books, and a huge globe to commemorate his scientific achievements. His tombstone is inscribed with the words, "Mortals rejoice that there has existed such and so great an ornament of the human race." Sir Isaac Newton, a shining star in the scientific community, rests in the ground forever. Alright, this is the end of this video. Thank you for watching.